I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Welcome to the Unidentified Celebrity Review. We've got a huge show for you this Friday afternoon. And it just so happens I was reading an article from one of our guests today, and it reminded me of a quick story I'd like to share. Tim McMillan's recent debrief article about San Marino spurred the memory. There's a small tidbit about Dr. William Colbreth authoring papers on fission propulsion on the behest of forerunners of the UAP task force. Not knowing anything about the UAP impetus of the request, Colbreth's results were real, and they yielded a new line of study that might yield usable tech. I think it's possible that much of our current technology might not be reverse engineered technology per se, but UAP inspired. Take the invention of the transistor. The theory of its working has a long understood human history, but scientists were facing engineering challenges when they were actually trying to create the devices in the 40s. The main team at Bell Labs cracked it in 1947 with the point contact transistor. But the lead scientist, William Shockley, did not agree that this was the right avenue to go down. He spent a month in solitude and came back with his own solution. Instead of a point contact, his transistor worked with alternating layers of metal. It was a superior solution to the point contact transistor, but it was also quickly obfuscated by the field effect transistor. Shockley didn't accept this, though. He tried to push his own layered approach, unsuccessfully. He somewhat went off the rails after that, eventually estranging himself from most friends and family and dying alone. And perhaps this is just a sad tale of science, but I think there might be outside influences in Shockley's downfall. Perhaps he was shown a piece of layered material, maybe similar to the current TTSA metamaterial sample. Not knowing its true function, Shockley may have tried to approach the layering approach to his current problem. And having worked initially, he might have been sure he was onto something. Of course, take this all with a large grain of salt, but in my opinion, UFO-inspired technology may be way more common than actual UFO reverse engineered technology. But with all UFO-related tech, your mileage may vary. And I wonder, do UFOs have gas pedals? If so, let's floor it and beam our hosts up from the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Let's hear it for Luis Jimenez and Michael Mataluni. Hey guys.
I missed Rather's intro.
Oh man,
new music, new DOS Tapes music.
Yeah,
for a little bit of a loop there.
Yeah, I sure did, didn't I? New jam from DOS Tapes. Wanted to get it in there.
I like it.
And here's an old school one. Yeah, this is my jam here. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is my co-host, Michael Mataluni, and Rather Be Squidding. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Before we get started with today's show, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. And I also want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. With all of that out of the way, I want to remind you guys also that we've got Spotify and we've got iTunes podcasts, so go check them out, rate, review. We've got links below for Patreon. Obviously, you guys saw the commercial, so please support through the Patreon if you can. And what else, Michael?
Well, I think people may not know that if they didn't catch all of the Big Phone Home 2 and they want to catch it, you can actually listen to it on Spotify. Both on your podcast and mine. You can go check it out literally right now.
Well, I don't have day 2 on my podcast. I've got days 1 and 3.
No, I got day 2. Yep.
Yeah, you've got day 2 on the Singularity Lab. I've got day 1 and 3 on mine. So between these two shows, please rate and review. What's up, Chrissy Newton? Thank you so much for being here, my lady. This is going to be obviously a debrief-heavy show. I'm very excited for today's show.
You got Chris playing out there in the chat as well.
Is Chris playing out there as well? I didn't see him. Let me see. Well, I'm glad that he's here. Thank you all so damn much. We truly appreciate the love and support. But let's do this, man. This is gonna be a jam-packed information day. Hopefully with little speculation, but a little bit, because I do love to speculate, because speculating is fun. But this is gonna be fun. Okay, Michael, please introduce our guests.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys have done a phenomenal job this week. I caught some of the shows, and I was thrilled to be back today because we've got an incredible one for you guys. Our first guest is an incredible investigative journalist. He's the lead investigator and co-founder for The Debrief. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, Tim McMillan.
Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Oof, we're doing really good now that Tim McMillan is making his debut. Breaking the Tim McMillan cherry. I love it. What time is it in Germany? It's like 9?
It is 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, okay.
I'm burning the midnight oil for you guys.
All right, man. Well, we truly appreciate it. We truly appreciate it. I'm glad that we didn't get you here at 3 in the morning or something crazy like that. But we're so happy you're here. And then we've got one other gentleman here ready to join us, Michael.
Absolutely. The also unassailable, looking for unassailable scientific evidence that UAP objects are real. He is the co-founder of UAPx. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Voorhis.
Hey, how's everybody going?
Ooh, man, that
Even
voice.
better.
That voice. Hey, man, how's everybody doing? Damn, how can we not be good with that? Gentlemen, so thank you all so damn much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure. I can't believe that this turned out to be a panel like this. We booked Gary first, and then me and Tim McMillan had an exchange, not a bad one, a good one, very positive one on Twitter. And he's like, hey, let's talk about it on the show. I was like, oh my God, yes, you, Gary Voorhis, rather than Mike, let's do it. I guess I'll start with you, Tim. I mean, it's the first time you're on the show, so let's get it going with Tim. You had some amazing articles drop here in the last week, including a woolly mammoth. Hopefully we can get to that. But I am curious, where would you like to start? With our Twitter exchange, or would you like to start with the floor is yours.
This is your show, man. It's wherever you want to go. And I like that you had a caveat that our exchange, because it was on Twitter, was good.
Yes. Well, anytime you talk about Twitter exchanges, they always they can always be pretty hairy. The thing that I think I was confused about, the breaking news, so to speak, is that there was 2 bills. There was a House resolution bill, and then there was also a Senate bill. And for a while, I think a lot of people were thinking that H.R.3450 was 2610, and they didn't even realize what it was at 4350 until this weekend, essentially. I guess let's start there. We're like, what are you feeling about these bills? Because that's what we've been talking about all week, and you're a wonderful mind when it comes to the political aspect of this and how bills work and where they go and the verbiage of things. So I guess let's start there.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely had 2 separate bills, and one of them was coming out of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And I don't know that anyone's a brilliant mind on the legislative process, because it's ridiculously confusing. But, the first bill was submitted by the Intelligence Committee, which this is the same committee that brought us the whole UAP preliminary report, all of this good stuff that's really taking the charge. So it wasn't necessarily surprising to see them put together a bill, because they had, in essence, I mean, very shortly after they had released that preliminary report, had said, hey, we're going to keep going forward with this. And all that really did was just say they wanted an update 4 times a year, a classified update. And so there wasn't really much to this other than saying they expected this to continue.
Right.
Now, the one that was recently coming out is the Armed Services Committee bill. Now, this one was a bit different and pretty surprising. This is the one that would go into the National Defense Act, which is the big bill that spend trillions of dollars. But what it did is it set legislation in place that would create a formal office. So no longer will we have a UAP task force. And in fact, the bill says upon creation of the office, the UAP task force would be terminated and you would have a permanent office. Now, it probably seems silly. You're like, well, obviously the task force has to work out of an office. Like, I don't understand why, what does this really mean? But in the highly bureaucratic, ridiculous world of the U.S. government, what this does is it does create the framework for having a permanent structure now. So the task force was always temporary. And you've probably seen, I know we've reported on it. I know some other outlets, I think, have mentioned it, that you've had different leadership kind of shuffle around in the task force. You know, it's a fluid. That's because they're temporary structures. And so with a task force, and it's just like anything in military, and I'm sure Gary's probably participated in some task forces, probably even been voluntold at times to be part of some
I think the right
forces.
words are, you're going to be voluntold for this. That ended up being nice bullet points later on, but like the WASP UAVs and the stuff like that. It's like, hey, guess what you're going to do? You're going to play with little planes, and then kind of find out it's like one of the most advanced drones that we had at the time.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is they're temporary deals, and someone can be voluntold. Somebody can ask to be a part of it. Even when somebody asks to be a part of it, they can be removed because they have another job formally. And that was the big deal. We reported on this, and I think George Knapp also had reported on it, maybe Brian Bender, where the person who had been running the task force for the last couple of years was removed at the beginning of this year. And someone else took his place. And now actually we named the current head of the task force. We have another new person just in the last couple of months. So in essence, what would happen is if this bill passes, you will have a formal office now. So now it is a permanent structure. This is where you don't have this revolving door of employees. You have people who are actually designated. This is going to be their job. It's very much, in a way, I guess you could liken it to Blue Book, because you know, that's probably people recognize the most. And honestly, if it passes, it will be the first time since 1968 the U.S. government, or 69, that the U.S. government has a official, formal UFO office. So it's a fairly big deal. I mean, when you consider the amount of time that's gone from there, and especially the disposition that the government has taken, at least up until the last couple of years, is, you know, this is nothing to this. So the fact that you're having a formal office established, it continues to set the precedent that lawmakers in the DoD are like, no, this is serious. And it's being a law. This will not be something that the DoD can say, oh, I don't want to do that, and we're not doing that. So it's something that will definitely come to fruition.
Do you have any fears, Tim? You know, when you mention this side by side with Blue Book, everybody goes, like, do you have any concerns about this going the same way as Blue Book?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and I think that's a great question. And I think when me and Luis first kind of very briefly, we had our very positive exchange on Twitter. He asked me that very thing, like, what can we do on the outside? What can we expect from this? And so that's a very nuanced question. And it'd be better to kind of explain here, because it's interesting. It's a complex thing that doesn't have an easy answer. Right. And part of that boils down to, and I think it's important, especially as we see it continue to move forward, that people in the UFO community or people who are following this understand, you know, this is something that's going on within the Department of Defense, within the intelligence community. And so a lot of what I see people ask for, and I mentioned this after the preliminary report came out, I remember being impressed. I was like, wow, that was more than I expected. Yeah. But that's because I understand what intelligence assessments come out and look like, what the Department of Defense talks about. A lot of what people are asking for when we're talking about the release of public information, data, all of this stuff, these aren't things that are typically in the purview of national security and the Department of Defense. We're talking about scientific endeavors. We're talking about, things that are bound in kind of these realms, these public realms of science, where we want to see this information. That's pardon the pun, that's an alien world to the DoD. and the intelligence community. And so when we have this formal office set up,
to be fair, telling the truth. Sorry, just telling the truth. Period is kind of an alien thing for them. They're just trying to figure out what little they can tell you without diminishing their secret values.
Absolutely. And Gary's absolutely right, is that in the defense world and in the intelligence community, you have levels of classification, and then you have the kind of unofficial policy of just don't say anything. I can't get in trouble if I say nothing.
Right.
And I can't get in trouble if I dismiss it. And so the idea of, let's quote unquote to say disclosure, or a very public forward facing office, I think that's kind of unlikely coming out of the DOD and the IC. And I mean, I don't mean that to kind of put a damper on everybody's spirits. It's just kind of the reality in understanding that a lot of the information that I think people want to see is going to have to be engaged with the scientific community. And in fact, a lot of the work that has been done with the big phone home, this type of stuff about lobbying lawmakers, that's great. And I think part of that work now is nowhere near finished, because who needs to be lobbied now are these scientific bodies. The U.S. government has them. We have private academic institutions, this type of thing. And so I do think that in my opinion, we've reached the point where the national security apparatus is taking it seriously. Now the scientific and academic community needs to equally do so, because that's where you'll see real public movement. Because at the end of the day, kind of like Gary said, the U.S. government could find aliens and crash spaceships, but until they were able to exploit that and use that to certain benefit and everything, this is them coming out and saying, "Hey guys, look at what we found." Yeah, it's just not. It's the same way as if you found a crashed Chinese stealth aircraft,
right? No one would ever hear about it.
Do you think we can read anything into the text of this bill? Like when the congressmen are asking for an update on any efforts underway on the ability to capture or exploit discovered unidentified aerial phenomenon, can we read into that? Or is that just standard? Obviously, it's not a standard thing to ask for, but...
Sure. Well, and that's a great question, because I've seen that word exploit kind of thrown out a lot lately. And it's important to understand that, again, it goes back to how the DOD and that whole world works. And when we're talking about exploit there, it's can we glean any information that is of use? And so it's not necessarily like, can we exploit it so we can fly it? Certainly that could be a part of it. That would definitely be a use.
Would you say asking for an update would imply that there are efforts underway to exploit these phenomenon?
Oh, I would say, I think the public statements by the task force at its creation, going back to last year, they acknowledged that wanting to exploit potential UAP was always on the table. And I think if you're talking about a DOD or an intelligence community endeavor, wanting to exploit it, meaning can we gather as much information and then use that in any meaningful way whatsoever, whether it's technology, whether it's to provide us with an advantage over our adversaries, that is always going to be your goal, to exploit. And so, I think that's obviously going to be a component of it, and has been.
In a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, it sounds like you're saying manage your expectations.
I've heard this before, Tim McMillan.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay, because honestly, Tim, that's what we preached report. It was like, listen to what Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon are telling you. They're telling you that we're probably not even going to get the report on time. If we do get a report, it will be a preliminary report. Like these agencies are not talking to each other. So on this show, we were very much like, okay, don't expect anything. And then like you, when we got what we got, we're like, whoa, okay, this is awesome. And I think that's the key here for anybody listening, is to manage your expectations, because as Gary and Tim are sort of emphasizing here, this is the intelligence community. They're not interested in giving you the details or the process, but they'll give you as much as they absolutely have to. And this new office maybe will facilitate some more data coming our way in the near future. Am I hearing that kind of correctly?
Sure. Well, and that's the nice balancing act here that we as the public is that the other thing that the DoD and the IC need lots of is money and public support. And so you have to establish the need for that. And so I think that that's where the public can stay involved and get information. Because, you know, one of the things I've stressed from the beginning of why this needs to be a more public issue is that's how kind of democracy is supposed to work. Like the people have to, you know, governments work on the informed consent of the public. And so we cannot make a good informed consent. Maybe I would prefer if they spent a lot more money on this than, let's say, you know, the F-35 program, which, judging by how that turned out, was probably a good thing. I would definitely say we should spend more money on it. But, you know, we don't know because we don't have an informed consent. So we don't have an idea. And that's, for me, I think that's the point that I think where people can be beneficial is with lawmakers, or even stressing to the Pentagon is, look, when you come forth and say that, you know, China is a threat to hacking us, I don't disbelieve you because you've given me enough information over the years or through public testimony or public documents that supports, okay, there may be a threat here. I see evidence. You've at least established that. You didn't tell me how you figured it out. You didn't give me all the nitty gritty. You didn't give me all your source and methods, but you've at least established enough that if you're going to ask for X billion dollars to keep China at bay, it's not going to be a big deal. And so I think that that's where having an office now is going to have a mechanism that is going to require funding. It's going to require staffing. And so I think it's incumbent upon the public to know, because in this instance, I think the people's greatest fears, and you alluded to this, Mike, is what if this isn't as funded as we feel it should be? And again, I go back to that. It doesn't really matter how silly some people think it is, or how silly, even if you've got like Blue Book, if you've got 2 or 3 people working that are understaffed, under-equipped, and don't have the means to really do what they're doing, they can't get the job done. And I really don't care how silly you think it is, because we as the public, and especially the topic that's gone around for so long, we want an answer. So if you're going to tell me you don't have that answer now, what do we need to get that answer?
Right.
And so luckily there'll be a focal point, provided this bill passes, that'll give us that.
Let me ask you this, Tim. Based on the bill and based on the potential for a permanent UAPTF task force, to what extent do you think they're really looking into the other bucket versus foreign adversary?
You know, that I'd have to speculate here, but I think that they are examining everything that becomes to them and is available to them. And so I think that was, when we talk about the preliminary assessment, one of the things that was most shocking or stunning to me was that other bucket that they mentioned. And so that they, you know, some of them, when they said we have these that are, you know, extreme propulsion, signature management, I went, whoa, holy cow. Like, this is impressive to even, you know, another argument I've long said is I only need one of those. You know, like, that's the thing, is people, you know, always argue this. Well, you got low information. It could be a bird. It could be whatever. It could be a distant plane. I'm like, it doesn't. If you've just got one, if you've got one Tic Tac or whatever, like, that really warrants. I don't need 10 million aliens flying around in a spaceship. I just need one that says that's a big freaking deal. Right? And so to have those 18, I think, incidents out of 23 reports was significant. And now, in their own words, you know, the task force said that's what we're going to focus on. And so I thought that was very interesting, because they were saying we're going to focus on the ones that are the most extreme, the most exciting, the ones that really don't fit in this box. And so I would say that there's no reason for me to believe that that wouldn't carry forth. You know, at the end of the day, the U.S. government does have a very well and robust establishment to look at foreign aerial threats or threats at sea and this type of stuff. And I think that if we're going to read through the lines here, I think we've got to accept that either another adversary has developed a technology just really under our noses that vastly just exceeds our capabilities in all of these other systems that we use, or there's something other we need to be looking at. And so I would imagine that the other bucket will probably be the primary focus.
Right.
Real quick, there's a $20 question, and I don't think there's ever an interview that you do where this question doesn't come up, but we have to ask it. And I want to go right back to what we were talking about. But the question is, and thank you so much, Jason Fay, for the donation. Tim, what is the status on the iPhone photo of a black triangle coming out of the ocean? It was mentioned on Fox News that you're working on it. Thank you for all the hard work.
If you want
Cheers.
me to take this, Tim, I'll take this.
No, you know what's funny? What's funny is that even internally, like amongst us in the debrief, like, you know, if I say I'm writing something right now, like Steve will be like, I hope it's part 4 to the or, you know, if I say I got something come out, they're like, is it the triangle? First of all, just to clear up things, and I think I've cleared it up in some interviews. I don't know if we've ever put a correction in there in the article, but later information that came through, just want to clarify in terms of the iPhone, is I do not believe that photo is an iPhone photo. Just so I believe it was captured with some type of US sensor system and some type of fidelity capacity. So high definition capacity. I afterwards, in kind of probing some people and everything, I think there was some confusion as to the photos that were released, that were captured with phones, as compared to that photo. And that was confusion on some of the people who had seen those photographs originally. And I always tell people it's important to understand it. This also goes to where the significance of this topic is at, is imagine, you know, it sounds really sexy and exciting to hear like the intelligence community is looking at this, they're getting these reports, but understand that your average intelligence community person is like your uncle who's an accountant, you know, they're computer nerds, you know, so imagine your uncle who's the accountant who's never been into UFOs gets this report and is like, holy crap. So, you know, that's where some of the confusion was. So I don't think, so to clear up that part. Now, in terms of will that photo be published or not, I don't know. I mean, and I've always stood by the fact that we stand by the reporting on it and that its existence. I know that, you know, besides just our reporting, others, you know, Tom Rogan being the first one I can think of off the top of my head, I believe, I don't know if they've ever published it, but I spoke to them privately, but both Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal had confirmed it. So a lot of others independently confirmed that existence. But I don't have a copy to share to anybody. You know, maybe the reason that I don't have a copy is I've always said, we don't withhold anything, you know, unless we're holding it to verify facts and make sure that it's documented and it can come out and we're comfortable with it. But if I had a copy, I would have released it a long time ago. If somebody sent me a copy today, I'd release it right now. And so, you know, it's unfortunately out of my hands. I also, after we released that Fast Movers article, that caused a bit more of a shitstorm than I think people realize. You know, within the intelligence community, within kind of that whole apparatus, because there were a lot of things discussed that people were like, that's dead on and shouldn't be discussed publicly. Like, who the hell's talking here and there? And so particularly the mention of that photo caused some considerable interesting questions internally, you know, even including but not limited into the actual congressional committees. There was some chatter that came back. In fact, a lot of people didn't talk to me for months. So,
do you have any indication if the congressmen, those committees, have seen the photo?
I don't. And they, as I said, people didn't talk to me for months, and it has especially gotten a lot more difficult. I would say things leaking out have been very much clamped down after we saw the leaks that came out with Jeremy Corbell and everything. So it's been a tough going.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering the question. I know it's something you get all the time and providing some nuance and perspective to it. But, you know, somebody did say earlier here, and I highlighted it. I do love shitstorms in this arena. So please keep causing some shitstorms because they're very fun. What I was going to say is my biggest fear about this new office is not so much that it's not going to have enough funding. My fear is that it's going to have the same attitude that Blue Book had. In other words, they're going to look at the data and they're going to have a perspective or a conclusion, even worse, before they go in and start looking at it. And then they're going to, in 4 years, turn around and say, yep, nothing to see here. Bye-bye, everybody. And then tip the hat and walk off stage. So like, how do you feel about that perspective of it?
Yeah, another great question, and it's one that's hard to predict. I would say that I was extremely impressed by the work that was done in the UAP task force from let's say 2018 up until recently. So the people who have been involved in it, I was very impressed. I was impressed not necessarily in the product they produced. And so, what I heard from other people and the fact that I saw moves that were being done that was very inconsistent. I mean, I wouldn't have expected, major briefings and where they were disseminating this information far and wide amongst the intelligence community and actually really getting people invested in it before it ever even started becoming public to us. And in fact, far before if you listen to the DoD, the task force started last year? I mean, that's, that's simply not true because we know they were briefing the Joint Chiefs the year prior. Right. But I was very impressed by that. And so the big question is, who is going to run this? I don't know. The other question is, where is it going to be placed? I think the Navy has really taken the lead here, and we've seen that. And hats off to the Navy because there's been plenty of reporting already saying that the Air Force has kind of obstructed this and been like, I don't want to deal with this. Right. And the Navy's done an excellent job because the Navy, I guess they've never pointed out the Navy technically has more aircraft than the Air Force. So, arguably the most important component of the U.S. military is the Navy. And so they can lead there. Now, there's no expectation that this office will stay with the Navy, though. And in fact, with this bill, it will go under the Secretary of Defense. Where it will go from there will be interesting. Because if you consider the Department of Defense Walmart, the Secretary of Defense is headquarters. And so is it going to stay at headquarters? Is it going to go down to Luis Elizondo's old office at the Undersecretary for Intelligence? A part of me hopes not. I'd like to see it in kind of acquisitions or technology somewhere else, just because I think there's been a lot of apprehension towards this topic where it has been in the Pentagon.
Well, it seems, because information seems to be getting clogged somewhere in that part of the apparatus. Is that fair to say?
It is. And I'm very fortunate. I hate teasing stuff now because people get mad about that, but we will in the next couple of weeks. We will be discussing that in depth. Maybe sharing Darth Vader, the Emperor, behind all of this.
Man, that's why they hate when you tease it. You just compared this person to the best villain ever of cinematic history.
I would say that it is somebody that has definitely, it's interesting because just a few people with power can have a lot of power, both bad and good. And in this instance, I think has just kind of obstructed things.
Does the name of this person rhyme with Cruisin' Cough?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Making sure.
And she's, God bless her. We have a love-hate relationship. She hates me.
Gary, please, if you have a question, fire away. We don't want to. We want to include you in this.
No worries. He's just got so much information. I'm actually just absorbing everything he's saying, anyways. So it's like, thanks for being. I'm just happy to be here.
No, it's awesome that you're here. Go for it.
The office. Being consolidated into an actual office and not just a task force. In my mind, it concerns me in one way, or it could be the best possible thing in another way. If it actually produces a decent report and does what it's supposed to function, it's going to be outstanding. If it just serves as a organizational point and a cap, well, then it's just a much more organized version of what we already have, which means that they're going to have exponential control over that information, and they can actually deliberately, not that they're not already deliberately only giving us the information that makes things easier for them. Because they're never going to admit anything that they don't want to be out. I mean, some things are going to leak, but all they have to do is just not say anything, and it just goes away, because unless it's validated, it doesn't mean anything. So, I'm really hoping that it actually does what it's supposed to function as, and not just as a cap point, as a dissemination point, instead of, a control instead. So let's just hope that it actually does what it's supposed to do.
I mean, I definitely hope that as well. I mean, let me ask you this, Tim. Speaking of sort of the two bills, and we were talking about this with Jazz Shaw on Monday. Only one's going to go through. The verbiage of it, that is. What do you foresee? What do you foresee the verbiage getting through to this bill and being actually signed into law? And is it too late? I heard it was 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, was the last day that the public could actually try and engage with their representatives to see if they can change some of the verbiage in the bill. Because, I mean, we're already in September now, right? It's mid-September, late September. So what do you think, as far as verbiage is concerned, that's going to pass into law? Because it seems like, I mean, from Jazz's perspective, nobody's going to go on the Hill and die over this. Like, no one's gonna come out and be like, this big bill is the biggest part of wasting money. Why are we spending money on this? Because it'd be sort of a bad move politically speaking, because nobody wants to be seen as anti-military. So that's why he thinks the bill will pass. It seems like everybody is very confident that it will be in there. It's just what the verbiage is going to be. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. I don't think there'll be any major changes to the core of the verbiage of both of these bills. I think that, because we're talking about different committees, I think what the Intelligence Committee has asked for is this quarterly briefings. I don't see why that would change. I think that they should get that, and I mean, I don't have a problem with that. And then the establishment of the office was in the Armed Services Bill, and in fact, last year when we saw these bills passed, it was passed in what's called an omnibus, where they just clumped everything in at the last. But these technically could pass separately. So you could have the Intelligence Act could go ahead and pass, and then the defense spending. The nice thing about the office side of it already being in the National Defense Bill is I don't think we haven't passed a national defense bill in time in like 50 years or something. So this is something that, like you said, everybody forces through. Right. And I think you make another great point, is that interestingly enough, especially at this time, like everything is so hyper partisan. Like everything is either Republican, Democrat, or right. Everything. UAP has been
bipartisan,
remarkably bipartisan. There's just there's no pushback. Like you said, there's no positive outcome you could see from pushing back on this, no matter what your party affiliation is. Right. And so I definitely think that it will get pushed through. I personally don't foresee there being any major challenges. It would take the debate on either the House or Senate floors for somebody wanting to argue against it. Potentially you could see a lawmaker maybe ask for more. I mean, that would be interesting if somebody went there. But again, it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Let's dip in the kiddie pool here. Lawmakers might be like, let's just keep. Things are going good. The public seems to be down with this. Let's just keep going there. But we could see more. I think that's what some of the things we can take away that we don't know is that all of these committees receive briefings, personal briefings, either before or shortly after the evaluation was released. And they went forward this. I mean, that's interesting. It obviously raises the question, well, what the hell did they see? What were they told? But they wanted to go forward with it. I think the other thing that's going to be a really big driving factor is the fact that we simultaneously have this Inspector General's evaluation going on. And so, there's definitely all the reason in the world for the DoD to get ahead of this, because I've said since that was announced that I think the Inspector General's report could have significant impact on what we ultimately see, simply because they have really comprehensive power, and it's very much like the internal affairs back in law enforcement, and so they can comb through your stuff with a fine-tooth comb, and in this evaluation they're going to present to Congress, here's the state of how things are right now. Here's the deficiencies and everything. So it's going to be a pretty robust kind of picture of what is the status of this and where is it going. And so that in itself will also influence the office, I believe. It'll have significant influence. I think that's where we'll be able to see what the deficiencies are. And the nice thing with the IG's office is even those kind of past people that maybe have mingled through the whole task force, they'll be spoken with. You know, they'll be a very comprehensive. I think the IG's office has always done a pretty good job when they do work. And so I don't think it's going to be. I think we'll get what's in there, if not more.
Do you think that's kind of a good safeguard for Gary's concerns about the UAP task force kind of going and or office, I guess, and kind of collecting it and keeping it all secret? I'm hoping that they're a good, kind of adversary force against that, or you think there might be some collusion between the objectives of the IG and the UAP office?
Well, hold on, Tim, for a second. The
Gary,
one thing you got to remember, this is still a DOD, department. It's going to be heavily tainted. It's not going to be, they're not going to. It's not like a independent study. It's not It's not like the IRS is to the U.S. government. It's part of the DOD. So they are absolutely going to be vetting it against everything. So yeah, it's still going to be filtered. You don't have a choice in that.
Right. Speaking of filtered and talking about Congress a little bit and the classified UAPTF report, and then additionally, Elizondo makes mention of this 22-minute video. Tim, have you talked to anybody in Congress or anybody who's seen the classified report? Obviously, they can't relate anything that was classified, but have you got any context on the emotional state of folks who have seen more than the public?
I haven't, and I'll be honest with you. It goes back to just what I said. They kind of after those leaks of the stuff that was the 2019 stuff with the Navy off the West Coast, after those kind of popped out, that really, it's like Gary said, they want to release what they want to release, and that was something they didn't want to release, and it wasn't released the way they wanted, and so that kind of caused a black eye, and so I think it really hampered people's ability to even talk on background candidly, and then at the same time, when we're talking about things that are classified, people go to prison for it, and so I haven't, I'll be honest with you. And Gary will tell you this. There's certainly certain things that I don't push people on, and I think things that could get people in trouble when I know that, they're not going to be able to share a whole lot as it is, to sit there. But I haven't gotten anybody's kind of feedback of whether it blew their socks off or not. It kind of leaves us up to interpretation. We see the results of what they've done since then. So it definitely didn't make them go, this is BS. Let's keep it moving.
Right.
Our buddy Dan has a good point here. He says, all I hear Tim saying that drumming up and teasing leaks is not the way to go in with this stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, it causes a lot of problems, and it's kind of like Gary said with the with the DOD and the intelligence community. These type of people, they want to release what they want to release, and they want to withhold what they want to withhold. And frankly, I had a really good conversation on background with a former Undersecretary for Public Affairs, or Assistant Secretary to Public Affairs. So, the public affairs. And this was during the whole, Luis Elizondo thing, like maybe he did, maybe he didn't, or you had all this like, no, we didn't investigate UFOs. And you're like, but look at these reports. Look at this dirt. It says UFOs. The people who wrote it, the people who worked the program says UFOs. Maybe, I don't know. You had this stuff, and I said, what the hell is going on? And they gave me a really insightful, you understand the DOD public affairs, first and foremost, is kind of like, why do we even have to deal with the public? I don't want to do this because they're so restrictive. And so they want to give as little information as humanly possible, without making a mistake. A great kind of example of that is that we just, an hour ago, the things that went on with the drone strike in Afghanistan. So when you have a Joint Chief saying, it was a righteous strike, great job, and then you're like, oh, my bad, we killed 10 civilians, like that, they don't like that.
Right.
And so they're very tempered on what they want to say. And definitely teasing leaks can hurt, and especially sometimes when those leaks come out. Again, I'll point to some of the stuff like Reality Winner. If anybody's familiar with her, who the NSA contractor who leaked the 2016 Russian election report. Okay, she went to prison for 3 years, was sentenced for 5 years. It's because she gave the report to The Intercept, and they printed the whole report. And so you'll see a lot of stuff when you read the Washington Post, Politico, even Us, where you'll see, on backgrounds, officials said such and such, but the report isn't printed. So there's like this threshold of what they'll tolerate when they're like, okay, because at the end of the day, there is a mechanism inside government, and in government, it's kind of this unofficial accepted policy that leaks exist because they help political agendas. And so likewise, you can have people that are working on this in the task force or who have seen this intelligence community who feel like this is a big deal the public should know. So we're going to leak a little bit, but handing out actual reports or showing the triangle photo and giving it to you, that's going to get people in some
arrested.
Shit. So can't do that. Yeah.
Well, none of us would be here if not for the leaks of the Navy videos in 2017, right?
Yeah, but you also have to remember that through the work of Lou and those guys, they actually got the chain of custody. They got those legally brought out to the public. They did it all the right way, which enabled a lot of us to talk more candidly about it. I mean, honestly, if it hadn't been vetted that way and proved to be real, would me and my shipmates and Commander Fravor, or even the article would be bullshit without that.
Well, yeah, so, they were released a couple of years prior to that, but yeah, no one paid them any attention because they didn't have that. That's a good.
Exactly.
Point.
And then once it was validated, all of a sudden now people like yourself actually want to hear what I have to say. So
I have a question for you, Gary, specifically regarding the Nimitz event. One of the things that I find most fascinating after Fravor and Dietrich came back and reported what they saw that day, nobody made them sign any sort of NDA on that. Do you guys have any insight onto why that was? Is it because it...
The only thing from talking to like the on the deck shipmates, off the record, that I can really attest to is that the only people that really had to sign an NDA were people that got some type of classified intel on the actual object. Just seeing the object wasn't classified enough. Like, if you happen to walk out the skin of the ship, saw the damn thing, wasn't no big deal. Now, if you got real EM data, if you've got a acoustic signature of it, those are all above top secret, and they're going to be, that's why I'm pretty sure the Hawkeye crew had to be signed an NDA. That's why I know our sonar technicians had to sign an NDA. They told me, one of them told me directly that they all were threatened with life in prison.
Wow. So, Did you have to sign any sort of NDA?
Hell no. I'm not important. So
interesting.
So yeah, it's just the difference on the information that the different departments, because the compartmentalized departments in each section had different information that it would have been able to gather. EM, electronic warfare guys would have been able to get EM data, the Hawkeye EM data, the sonar guys, I know for a fact they got a passive track on this object as it flew by or went underwater. They haven't clarified that part, but I'm pretty sure that it was while it flew by. And that's going to be classified because that's going to give them the ability to identify these objects at any given time.
Right.
So because these audio signatures are like a fingerprint for anything moving in the air or the water. So that's why it's so secret. Obviously you can't have the acoustic frequency of a nuclear sub, because, well, then you're going to be able to know where all of our nuclear subs are.
Right.
So, hopefully that answers your questions a little bit.
And I wanted to add there, Gary, because correct me if I'm wrong, because I think sometimes people have this maybe a misimpression of that. When you mention that, is that those classifications of those NDAs, they relate to the systems and data that's being recorded. I think people assume that by saying that means, oh, well, obviously the Tic Tac was classified U.S. technology. No, it doesn't. It means that the systems that capture them are classified,
Mhm.
and that the stuff that's there, and it's so highly classified because we're talking about stuff that, you know, your adversary gets that, and suddenly you find yourself in a war situation, and
Yeah.
you fly in a jet and you try to lock up and fire on an enemy, and nothing happens. And so, I could be wrong, and like I said, it wasn't there, but
Well, I think
Gary
it's.
probably
I think
answered.
you're right. I think it is a two-part thing. It's the actual systems themselves, the capabilities that we have. They have to be stay classified, and then the information that those gleam is very classified too. Sonar is a very old technology, so I don't mind talking about that. Everybody's got pretty super advanced sonar at this point, but it's always going to be a hard line on with the U.S. government and its capabilities. You're never going to get more than they want you to know, and they're always going to use these reports to do counterterrorism, and they do counterintelligence because it's just too easy, and not, it's important for them to do that. Whether we like it or not, we are the ones that have to figure out how to split the hairs and figure out what's real and what's not, because and that's honestly why I respect guys like Tim that do that kind of legwork and stuff like that. I don't have the patience for that. I have the patience for going out and collecting terabytes of information and sifting through millions of hours of video, but this guy, he's a wordsmith. He goes through the words. He goes through the documents, and I'm trying to get the audiobooks.
Yeah, that's I would appreciate the audiobooks as well, Tim.
we knew. It's so funny. We were just talking about that. But first of all, thank you, Gary. But I think that that's a component to this that hasn't been discussed. Is why are certain things classified, and why are certain things guarded? And it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's a secret program. It doesn't necessarily mean that the government wants to withhold UFO secrecy. But at the same time, if we're talking about something that is a true vulnerability to national security, the government, any government hates talking about that. I mean, that's like telling all your neighbors you leave the key outside and how to get in the house. And so, in so much so that there have been times, it actually may have been with you, Gary, it was probably a year ago or so, there's been times when I have told, I know PJ Hughes for certain, where I've said, hey, man, there's somebody probing you on Twitter, asking you questions about the technology and stuff.
If I'm not mistaken, there ended up being an investigation about that, because we're even just us that worked on classified systems, once it gets out that I'm a specific person or he's a specific person, then they start asking these very pointed questions, and we're kind of good at kind of sifting it and saying, oh, well, this is a little odd. Why would he be asking me that? And PJ was pretty good about that. And, there's a lot with the Hawkeye that's even more classified. So, that's actually why he went dark. He'll hop on and talk a little bit, but when it comes down to it, we know for a fact China is trying to replicate the Hawkeye. And, he was asked, hey, and not for nothing, but please, stop talking about the capabilities of the Hawkeye. So, not that he was really doing anything unclassified. Granted, just you doing your homework on the Hawkeye, you'd know just about everything that he said. But it was just more of a pat on the back type of thing. It wasn't like a threat or anything like that. And, he just kind of wanted to retire a little bit from doing all this. So, I don't blame him. It wears you a little thin after some time to time.
Got to worry about spies, the community, and everybody.
Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, quick question. So we had Tom Rogan on the Singularity Lab last week, and you, Tim, and Tom did an article quite a while back for the debrief. It was an amazing article. One of the things that I asked him if he still believes that you talked about all we need is one, right? This idea that this could be something that is far beyond human potential to create, if that is the case. But do you still believe that this is 99%? You said you believe that 99% probability that there is non-human intelligence associated with this phenomenon. Do you still believe that based on the research, the investigations you've been doing since that time?
What did Tom say? I'm curious.
He said yes.
Okay,
Let's make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah. Okay. Well, let me just clarify, because I do know the quote that you're saying. Because I get myself in trouble with this, because like Gary mentioned, at times I'm a wordsmith, so I got a little Susan Go in me where I play word games. And so what I said was, I'm 99% certain that it is not a technology that belongs to a state or non-state actor, I think I said.
Okay.
People are like, he said it's aliens. He said it's aliens. I'm like, well, could be a bird, could be ice crystals, could be a lot of things. But I do stand by that
I'm going to go on
there are
record
definitely
saying not
instances.
ice crystals.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you're going with not ice crystals, Gary.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, and you as well, Tim. No ice
Absolutely.
crystals.
I reject the idea of spontaneously forming ice crystals in the atmosphere.
Clouds are a lie.
I'm probably one of the most frustrating people to talk to about this topic, because I'm willing to say that based on everything that I know and everybody that I've spoken to, yeah, I'm willing to say that there's a 99% chance that some of these instances do not involve any known technology, whether it's by anyone. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Like, that's where I frustrate people, is because I end there, because I don't know what that means. Does it mean it's aliens? I don't have an alien to compare that against, and I am one of those people that I'm willing to say, here's what all the evidence says. And if I was going to continue to pursue it down this angle, I don't see anything that suggests that. But I would say that overwhelmingly, and Tom probably elaborated on it as well, that this is just based on a totality of things. It's not just what you see in a video. It goes into the responses we've seen. It goes into all of these just different factors that say, no, I don't think that, there's nothing that matches these types of capabilities. And I do think there are plenty of means that, whether it's the U.S. government or their allies, that are able to kind of rule out some stuff. And the fact that they can't, it really, and I think that's the fun mystery of it. But so, yeah, we could always be wrong, but I would say everything that's in front of me there, I will stand by that 99%. I don't know.
Okay. All right. That was an interesting answer. So before we get to our hour reset, let me just go ahead and ask this $5 super chat question, because Tim kind of answered it a little earlier before, but they paid, so I'm going to ask. Besides the triangle photo, has the debrief been privy to any info/evidence that would be a game changer if it were released to the public? And I think you said earlier that if you had the photo, you'd release it.
Give us the dirt.
But give us the dirt.
Or Chris Plain would steal it from you and release it.
Exactly. Yeah, Chris Plain. Well, just tell Chris Plain, really, is all you got to do. And then you can just blame him.
We
Let him go to jail.
We should blame him, because Chris Plain has some information that's game changer, that's in this area. Let me put it that way. It's not necessarily UAP per se, but I'll tease that bunch. But game changer, no. By game changer, I mean that, like, you're going to release it and it's going to make everybody, like, maybe my standard for game changer is too high too. Maybe I'm thinking game changer is Midwest is like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's a good game changer. I was going to say the game changer for me is a soccer mom. When a soccer mom starts paying attention to this.
Well, I think a lot of soccer moms are going to actually be more interested in this than Congress. So, I mean,
I think there's plenty of game changers that will prove to be game changers down the road. Is there that single silver
smoking
bullet?
gun? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think, yeah. I mean, when you've got people like former secretaries of the Navy who are sitting there going, man, this stuff's real. And we don't know what it is. When you've got other people like that, you see this. To me, that is a game changer if your pre-existing belief before this was all nonsense.
Yeah. And people have to remember that people like Tim, me with my company, it's our job to not only provide answers for you guys, but to clarify this topic so that people in Congress can look at it and not see something horrible that's going to destroy their chances at reelection.
Right.
You know, so whenever it can be a interesting topic that they're not going to get booed off stage for, they're going to be all for it. So when we give it our spin, me, nuts and bolts, Tim with just practical reality, they can digest that. They can't digest screwing a blue alien. They want to know, okay, there's a Mach 25 object that comes into our atmosphere that we have no control over. We need to do something about it. They understand that. They don't understand, I know somebody from Zeta Reticuli.
Right.
You know, so I give all the respect to any experiencers. I can say yes or no, whether they are or not, but that's not going to get us the answers that we want. It's through the diligent work of people like Tim, people like, and the things that Tim's are doing, and the guys that are doing the actual investigations on these and trying to produce real evidence, things that even Mick West says, shit, I guess that's not a seagull.
Yeah.
Shit, you know, so let's get them some funding. You know, that's where we're at.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be up to guys like you, guys like Tim, guys like us. I mean, I think there's no wrong answer in how to get more data, just as long as we're all pursuing it, you know, and that we understand that expectations have to be set for everybody. You know, it's going to take time, especially from a private sector point of view. Like, you guys need funding, you need more equipment, you need a bigger team. But I feel like those things are coming. We just have to be patient. But Tim, you were going to say something. What was it?
No, I was going to say you're absolutely correct there. And I just want to take myself out of that because it's not going to be me that brings the game changer other than I'll report on it.
Right.
And I'll dig and drive the government crazy. But you're 100% correct. And that's where I was really kind of going with when I was talking about what can we expect from this UAP office or whatever. We're not going to expect the game changer. The game changer is going to come from groups like UAPx. The game changer is going to come from something like the Galileo Project. The game changer is going to come when we see people step in. And like Gary said, it's not to, it's certainly not to disrespect anybody when they talk about having experiences and this type of stuff, but having that hard, tangible data that you've got it, you know, screw you and your classification. I got it on my systems that aren't classified and I'm public. We're putting it out here. Here's the data. Here's the information. It's irrefutable. I believe that game changer is going to come from organizations like UAPx, stuff like the Galileo Project, other private endeavors or scientifically minded endeavors. That's where it's going to come from. And I hope to see a lot more pressure. It's going to take some away from me because, you know, my primary bread and butter is reporting on the DoD, but I think pushing to get science involved and getting real credible organizations to do it, that's where you're going to get your game changer. And that's the encouraging part for me, is that you do have people like Gary out there. You do have stuff like when you got Harvard.
Avi's doing awesome.
No, that's to me, that's a game changer for me. Just the fact that you've got Harvard actually a part of, not Harvard as a university, but people in Harvard within that institution of higher learning, professors going, okay, there's something here. We got to look at it scientifically. It's incumbent upon us to do this because that's what science does. Quick question for you, Tim. Would you like to hang around for an hour or two?
Sure, man. We're having a good time, dude.
Yes.
I'm still awake, man. Yeah,
excellent. I love it. So, Michael, let's go ahead and reset the room, and then we got a word from our sponsor.
Absolutely. For those of you just joining us, we've got an amazing panel for you right now. We've got Tim McMillan. He is an incredible investigative journalist, as well as the co-founder of The Debrief and lead investigator. Thank you so much for being with us, Tim. We really appreciate your time. And we've got Gary Voorhis is with us, who is looking to provide unassailable scientific evidence that UAP objects are real, findable, and he's doing this every single day. He's the co-founder of UAPx. Thank you so much for joining us as well, Gary. All right. And now a word from our sponsor.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
So I have a question. We were talking about game changers, and we're talking about Galileo Project, Avi Loeb, UAPx, and these organizations looking to do independent work from the military-industrial complex and the federal government in order to gather the information on UAP. My question is, Tim, you had an amazing article today on the debrief about the UN's interest in this phenomena. Can you talk to us about what is actually going on, and do you think this is another potential game changer in this scenario?
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that's very interesting in the works, and so that was an interesting story because we have, I got wind of it and kind of got an idea of what was going to be done over a year ago, and so it was like, and in fact, I think some people, there I go teasing stuff again after saying don't tease stuff. I think I said close to a year ago that I would look for around September for a dark horse country to emerge that might be willing to take this global. And that was, I knew that this was going to be presented to San Marino. The first thing I want to say, and it's hard to, especially when you got to deal with editors. MJ's not in the room, is he? That little bastard. You can't, although I get a lot of leeway. It's nice to start in your own outlet is you can write these 8,000 word mega pieces, but
right.
You got to try to
condense your editor
it.
on the head.
Right, exactly. A lot of work has gone into this, so it is not just this kind of slapshod throw in. In fact, frankly, I think there's been a lot more groundwork laid into this than even was the 1978 Grenada thing. So there's been a lot leading up to this. And what's being asked here isn't necessarily what was asked the last time the UN was this kind of global UFO investigative group, but rather a UN-sanctioned world conference. Very similar, and I think people are like, what? We're going to hold another, Jesus, we've got enough UFO conferences. Now the UN's going to hold one? Well, yeah, but this is a little different because it helps set policies and agendas for the United Nations, and it gets the international community and global countries involved to where now you have representatives of, different governments coming in and discussing this. And it requires different governments to have their own kind of formalized organization thing. In a way, frankly, it is the groundwork that lays where suddenly you don't just have a UAP office in the United States, you've got one in all these countries across the world because they want to participate. And as that grows and as more advances are made, countries that maybe aren't jumping in just yet go, hold on, wait a minute. I don't want the United States to figure it out before I figure it out. Right. We're going to be left behind. We're going to be buying U.S. equipment for the rest of our lives.
Buying U.S. Tic Tacs for the rest of our lives.
Right. And so it is right now. It has been presented to the officials at San Marino. In fact, I think there was already a lot on Twitter that people, Luis Elizondo went down there. He helped present. And so it is in the hands of the San Marino government as to whether they're going to take it forward and present it to the UN. And so that's where it's at. It's got the people who put this together, I think, did a really good job. And frankly, San Marino itself was already a kind of a natural fit because they do. And I think I didn't mention in the article, but they have been hosting an annual conference there, a private group, kind of an Italian version of MUFON, maybe, or a private group has been hosting it there. And so now they're asking for a UN thing. It would be a much more international type forum.
You think? Oh, sorry, go. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I was just going to say, I think that, I'm hopeful for it just because the work that they've done. But I know the people who put it forward, Paulo, who's a great guy, and was very helpful in chatting with me about all of this and want to make himself available to chat with others. Somebody you need to have on UCR here to maybe speak about it more. But I think that they're hopeful about it, and I think that it's one of a number of efforts that maybe we'll see in the next year to make it a global issue, because it's been dominated by the United States far too much, I think, which is kind of ridiculous.
If this does, happen and comes to fruition, do you think that such a UN program would stoke competition between countries, or do you think there would be hope of collaboration? It kind of seems to me that it might be, if they won't even share their data with the public, are they really going to want to share it with their adversaries and, collaborate on this?
And it depends on what context it comes in. And this is why I've kind of preached on this about bringing it into this world of being a scientific debate and an exploratory debate instead of just a national security debate. I do understand and respect why governments would say it's a national security issue. Hey, if you've got stuff flying around your skies, you don't know what it is, we probably need to know about that. But bringing it into an exploratory debate, I think, is really critical here, to especially having that kind of involvement. I had a good opportunity to interview one of the NASA astronauts a couple months ago, and I asked him, I'm like, it's funny, you guys fly up on Russian spacecraft, or you have cosmonauts that fly up on NASA space shuttles or SpaceX. It's interesting because we see so much rhetoric in the world. Like, we'll see the governments, the president of the United States or the president of Russia talking about how they're going to bomb each other and all this stuff. But then you've got these people who are coming together and working together in this program. And I said, how does that work? How were you able to kind of bring that in? And he said, it's about being an explorer. Is once you realize now we're going into a new frontier, people tend to get together. It puts differences aside, and once you realize that this is something that is a humanity issue, it's not a geopolitical issue, they do come together. And so I think that if it's framed in that manner, I would be hopeful that I think I've always said that a couple of things need to happen. Like, you need to have all these different government agencies, the U.S. government, get together in a big round table where everybody has that Spider-Man meme moment where they're all pointing at each other and they go, wait, it's not you? I thought it was you. It's not you. Then you need to have global governments have that same kind of conversation. And then after that, everybody can be like, well, shit, this is something we should probably figure out here. Because, again, I'm comfortable in saying I don't know and the unknown, but the unknown ramifications or what that unknown could be, there's a list of things. And on that list of things are certain aspects that would be the greatest advancement in humanity. The greatest things is the advent of language, frankly. Like, it would be massive. And so that's, if you put that in perspective, I do take this stance and can appreciate people like Avi Loeb who says, you know what, screw what you think. Like, we're talking about something that has implications that are really, really big deal. So we should, what's the harm? And that's what science does, is try to solve it. And if it's not a big deal, then prove it. Again, what science does.
Exactly. So I did have a question. Where is this impetus from our government coming from? Like, why now? Why is this something that they're pursuing now? Is it because if something like a San Marino coalition at the UN was the first to sort of reveal this truth to the world, I feel like that would be embarrassing for the United States military apparatus in a lot of ways. I feel like this is a wonderful opportunity for them to not only secure funding forever, but they would also just win a lot of trust, not only from the American people, but from the rest of the world. I mean, like you said, this is something that is as big as the advent of a language. So why is it because, as much as I'd love to pat myself on the back for the big phone home, the big phone home is not why we got these bills. The big phone home is not why, we got the preliminary report. I mean, it didn't hurt, but it's not the reason. And I'm okay with saying that. So I also know that from a political perspective, people are not knocking down the doors of their senators and congressmen, not yet anyway, to get more information on this. So why? Why are they putting these bills together? Why are they putting this language together? Is it because of pressure, or are they just curious? Like, are they just curious themselves? Or do they see something like a San Marino coalition at the UN coming together and beating them to this paradigm shift? You know, as is the smallest way I could phrase it. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure, great. I you know, my opinion is that's an answer that's multifaceted. I think that you have the fact that this information came out publicly to the, you know, in an extreme manner. You know, we can't take away from the work that happened with the New York Times article, and even everything that came out with people like Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo. That obviously, I think we would be kidding ourselves if we didn't say that had a huge influence on it, because it brought the topic back into this realm of both public interest, but now in this weird state of where now you had you know, the appeal to authority approved it. And I think it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
I get people a lot of times that will say they have these UFO videos. I always mention them. I'm always like, well, what's the provenance? And it's because the reality of it, and it was mentioned earlier, is that when the Nimitz video was leaked years prior, people were like, that's bullshit, get that garbage out of my face, and laughed it away. But suddenly,
interesting fact about that video, it was literally leaked the next day, and it was on the internet for this entire time.
Yeah.
Because every once in a while somebody would actually email it back to me. So,
right.
So every couple of years I'd see it just kind of surface, and then
that's what Fravor would say too, is like every once in a while somebody email him and be like, is this real? And he'd be like, yep. Yeah. You know, exactly. Like, it's real. But nobody, even if the person who got that answer from David Fravor can't go to the media and be like, hey, the Z16 pilot said it was real, so, you know, it's got to be real, right? It needed the verification to give it the validity to start this conversation going. But yeah, you were saying, Tim.
Yeah, no, I mean, that in itself. So suddenly you had the authority behind it. So suddenly you had this appeal to authority because you had the DOD. You had these people that where you could check their backgrounds. You're like, oh, okay, they are who they say they are. Wow. All right. That obviously had a huge factor in it. I would say that internally, the people who had been looking at this work, so not only, you know, there were other people that were working with Lou Elizondo, you know, before he left. When he carried the ATIP program over, there were other people there. There are other people that are still there. And those people were wisely kind of moved things into place because they believed that this was an issue that was serious, needed to be taken seriously. And so they did kind of the wise, different, smart steps all along the way, you know, down to the point of, you know, that's why we ever had them acknowledge a UAP task forces, because they did things like follow the bureaucratic processes to apply for it and put it in front of the Assistant Secretary of Defense. And so they did all these steps that maybe haven't been done in the past, and they did it publicly.
Well, they secured funding.
Well, and I think that, you know, in that vein, there's no reason to kind of diminish roles like what you're talking about with the big home phone and everything. It's because there was public support pushing it forward. And I've pointed that out, that, you know, if you, in latest polls, the number of people who believe that UFOs are real, and even the numbers of people who believe that UFOs could be alien life. If you look at the Pew Research Institute, that total number of just American citizens outweighs the combined votes for the presidents. And so you look at that means that the American public, like, they're the public speaking. Right. And so it's interesting instances where, yeah, no, I think that I'd like to hope that had a huge impact, because that's the way it's supposed to work. And then I think the last part of it, when you're talking about getting embarrassed on the public stage, I don't know that embarrassed on the public stage is really a huge concern, because, you know, unfortunately, in the world of geopolitics, you know, somewhere like the United States has lots of money and throws it around, and it's like, hey, San Marino, here goes some cash money, just keep quiet. But I do think that there are aspects of which the DOD became concerned, and even more concerned that major potential near peer competitors, such as namely Russia and China, were taking this seriously. Guys, it's so much easier. See, this is why I like doing interviews, because I don't have to sit down and write it all out. I can just talk.
Right. So much better. Please,
So
anytime
much
you
better.
want to write, just say, yeah, let me give Lou a call.
Let me give Lou a call. Because
You get Lou a call and you just get cryptic answers. But now, one other thing you guys have to remember about the UN getting involved with this is that this is information gathering. This is intel. This is all, they're not, 90% of our field's taking this as honestly, a joke or just a side hustle or a hobby, or hopping on Twitter to see if there's anything real going on. When the government's dealing with this is not haha funny. This is critical. This is information. This is keeping all of us safe, keeping the world safe, keeping, and then of course, intel, they consider that to be the end all be all. Who has the most information wins, period. So everybody's going to be involved with this. And then on top of that, anybody that wants to keep getting money from the government, from our government, will also be involved in this too. So you can count all the countries that are receiving aid from us, and then you can also count any country that doesn't want to get too far behind the information curve.
That's an interesting point. I'm wondering, how does San Marino get foreign aid from the United States? If so, how much? Could that be something that they sort of hold, like a carrot they hold over the San Marino government, going, yeah, maybe don't go to the UN with this, because they've got 30 days essentially to decide, right? They've got the next month to sort of mull it over, and they were supposed to come to a decision. But does anybody know the answer on that, Tim?
No. Well, they approximately. They actually don't have any legit time frame that they have to. I think the 30 days is what the estimate is. I don't think that the U.S. government holds anything over it. I think there's reason for, like Gary said, I think there's reason for the United States and its allies to rally around this.
Right.
And one of the things that I haven't had an opportunity to put on paper that I think could be one of the impetus behind this is the fact that unambiguously and under no uncertain terms, it doesn't take any interpretation. But I was able to get documents showing out of Russia isn't like, they're not dancing around it. Russia has said UFOs are real. They represent a game-changing weapons technology that if we can exploit, they will change the entire geopolitical stage, and even listing the types of technologies that could be emerged from it. And so now all of a sudden, I think you've got to make a decision now. Is that just disinformation? Are they trying to throw out stuff to make us spend money to look at this? Well, I don't know. But at the same time, you also have people like Gary Voorhis and your own pilots who are seeing stuff. Right. And so what are they seeing? And then you don't look at that. And then the next thing you know, like I said, that's something that I'm working on. But the technologies or weapon systems they believe that could be developed from it are scary. They're scary. And that goes back to kind of the UN thing, is that I hope that it's not. The last thing I would want to see is a global arms race over this type of stuff.
A global UFO arms race.
Right.
Well, what if kind of the opposite happens, and it turns out that these UAPs do exist, but they're just so mysterious and out of this world that we can't actually, or it takes us years and years to learn any tangible things about them. How long do you think that congressional and public support can keep up if we don't get results?
And that's a great question, because that has always been my argument as to what happened with Blue Book ultimately, or what caused the government to shut it down, is because it reached something. And I think if you really go through even the Condon Committee and a lot of the actual reports and everything, they never actually say this isn't real. They just kind of reach the point where they're like, I'll paraphrase what their tone is. It's, look, we've got a Cold War going on. We could spend our entire defense budget on this. I'm not sure we can figure this out. We've got to allocate resources elsewhere. And we realize that the public really wants to know. So we've got to make this sound like a silly topic, because we've got to focus on building bombers and bombs to win a Cold War. And so you're right. There does reach a point of kind of diminishing return where you're like, can we figure this out? And I don't have an answer to that question because, you know, I stay in that little 1% I don't know lane.
Yes.
But I think it's real.
Yes, we can.
Well, I don't.
He's like,
mean,
that's my
makes you say
mission
that, Gary.
statement, man.
Yeah, that's my mission. Well, I don't know if I would love nothing more in my all of my body wants to agree with Gary, but when you hear the Secretary of the Navy say that these reports come across his desk and he knows about them and he's very aware of where they are, what they're doing. But he's also got the threat of nuclear war in North and South Korea. He's got an unannounced war in parts of Africa. You've got Iraq, Iran, now the mess in Afghanistan. And so it keeps just not because he wants to put it down the importance list, but he is literally forced to. So, you know, going back to what Rather said, and sort of like this fear of this becoming just another blue book is real. And I think the only way we make sure that they stick with it is if we publicly put the pressure on. I think that would help. But I mean, what do you go ahead, Rather?
Well, there's two kind of things. There's the priorities, right, which you're kind of getting at with there's a lot of different competing priorities. And then there's the capabilities if we actually can figure it out. And I'd be really curious if Gary could elaborate on if there's anything why you think yes.
Yeah,
well, I think with enough money and time that even the civilian sector will answer those questions. So no matter what, with time, most of our questions will be answered. It'll probably be trickled down through new technologies, new inventions, things like that. You know, you won't know we have alien technology, but you'll know we have alien technology. You know, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you look at our state of energy production. You know, we have all these renewable resources and these great ideas, but they don't get half the funding that they should, or the technologies are almost like dead end technologies where, you know, they're just not being utilized, or if they are utilized in the grand scheme, it takes almost as much money to build them and use them as they produce. So they're not very viable. So we haven't seen a big jump in energy production, like a real fusion reactor that's stable, or propulsion systems that are fossil fuel based that are viable, except for a couple occasions now. But that's because somebody is literally putting billions and possibly trillions of dollars of research into it. But the answer is yes, because time keeps going on, and eventually we'll know something.
Time, focus, and energy. Right.
Yep, exactly. You know, we've got a movement started. It's the outcome is determined already, and it's just a matter of how long it's going to take them. There could be a good possibility we're all going to be in our graves before that happens, or at least all of us by age. Right. Of course, we'll all die of old age. Everybody here is going to die of old age.
That's not a threat.
Yeah, it's not a threat.
We'll all be going. We're going to get Rather.
Just we've gotten more in the last 3 years than we have in the last 75.
Right.
So there is a paradigm shift here that's going on. Everybody can see it, everybody can feel it in their bones, but it's not going to be like, you're never going to hear anything past the Nimitz encounter. There's too much liability, too much money involved. They're never going to admit anything past that. They will say, "Oh, well, we had, we found this debris, but it wasn't UAP. Now we know it is, but
well, how about?"
Then they're going to make all kinds of excuses for anything they've acquired prior to the Nimitz encounter. But the Nimitz encounter seems to be that catalyst line where they're willing to admit things are happening.
Well, wouldn't it be nice? I mean, like, I understand, like, look, I want proof just like anybody else. Everybody wants to see the smoking bun, not the smoking bun, the smoking gun. But I mean, smoking bun sounds great. You know what? Let's just stick with smoking bun.
Delicious.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't need proof. What I would like at this point is some sort of official statement, something out of the Navy, something out of the DOD that says, okay, enough playing around. These things are real. We're looking into it. I mean, is this office?
You've already gotten that though. I mean, they've already admitted it. They've already changed it so that it's now trendy to report these things.
Right, but
they have a specific place where these reports go to now. You know, so
I guess
those are really the only two things that changed. But they did actually admit it.
No,
Congress
I know.
they're real.
I know
There's
that,
no
but I'm
disclosure.
saying I would like to hear a head of state say it. You know, a president, a secretary of state, a 4-star general that is actually working, not a former one. Somebody in office that where it's like it's undeniable at this point, and I think that's kind of what we're missing. I think that would give a lot of these permissions that I guess science is looking for from that higher authority that Tim touched on earlier. But so, go ahead, Michael, what do you think?
Well, I just want to say, there's nothing will ever happen that makes any of this undeniable, right? Because you still have the appeal to the authority. You still have people who will go, that's disinformation. We're fucking with the Russians. I mean, this will go on forever and ever, but I get your point, and I think it's valid. And we do need transparency as much as we can on this issue from as many different sectors, including the government, as we can get. I just like the idea of irrefutable. In this day and age with the technology we have, is that even a thing?
And what if it's like horrible? I joke about this among the guys at Debrief because I love tragic irony. You know, I'm the guy who watches Oak Island Mystery because I'm hoping to reach the bottom, and it ends up being like the bottomless pit, and you reach the 7-headed beast, and everybody's like, "It was a horrible idea."
Yeah.
I hope there's just a note down there saying found in 18.
Yeah, that would be terrible. A lot of my life would have been wasted on that show because I love that you guys also love that show. It's one of my favorites.
Dude, what are they gonna find? But I'm always like, what if it's really fucked up? What if the truth is like we're living in a simulation? Like we're sim-like in a computer, and we're like, this sucks.
Well,
I
can deal with that.
System.
Like the Tic Tacs are like the programmers, and they're just like reestablishing reality every day, just writing lines of code.
Or they're just a glitch.
Yeah, right.
It's an antivirus program.
Right. It's one of these things. Right, exactly. And you're like, man, I was better off not knowing. But but
that's how my wife feels. She's like, I'd rather not know. I just don't want to know.
I think I'd be cool with the program as long as we're not owned by an alien race. I mean, because when it comes down to it, if there is an off-world, influence here on this planet, they probably own us. So I mean, I would rather the simulation because at least I'm real to me.
But here's the thing. Go ahead, Rather.
Well, here's an interesting question. I was just watching some of Red Panda Koala's videos the other day, and they bring up a very interesting point about Tom DeLonge and his theory about the terrible truth. What if we all knew, the society knew that UAP were real, the UAP would come and destroy us, wipe us off of civilization. So by announcing the truth, you would doom mankind.
So kind of like a Pandora's box of
Would it be worth knowing?
That's also a scary thing. We've actually had that serious conversation within our company because there's two definite things that we could end up learning things we don't want to know.
Right.
And the other problem is that when we do find out anything, we're going to run into the government. So no matter what we do in our field, we run into brick walls no matter where we go. So we're kind of hoping that everything is kind of cool.
It's the friendly alien.
Wow.
Well, I wanted to say something real quick, just going back to what Tim was talking about earlier, because when Tim did an interview with Green Street a couple years ago, and it was such a great interview. And one of the things and we rather brought this up earlier, because we have this idea that, well, if we had some sort of wreckage, we had some sort of metamaterial, we would have focused on back engineering it. And Tim's point was, well, look, you're building planes that work today. If you're a 4-star general, are you going to say stop building those planes and reallocate the money to reverse engineering a Tic Tac? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I think there is this interesting, monetary, financial position when it comes to this sort of stuff that, there's very much can be learned from economics, and it's not something we often talk about.
I agree with you, Mike. I think that was.
Well, no, I agree with you.
No, I agree with you more. I agree with you agreeing with me. I thought that was one of the most fascinating things is that, and I've never got a dissenting answer when I've talked to people that have worked in black budget programs or from this defense world. So I've always said, look, what's the likelihood of the Raiders of the Lost Ark here, where you do have something and you just reach the point where you're like, box it up. Let's try to figure out what we know in 50 years and see if we're closer there, because it's reached the point of diminishing return. And it's always been interesting because everybody said, I could see that, like they're saying that that's not totally crazy, in the realm of things that's it's probably when we talk about crashed UFOs or Roswell, that was the first time that I heard something that I went, meh. Maybe I could see that, because I could see where that comes in, and just knowing how much bickering and how much craziness goes on when you're talking about the budgets and the government. That's why we have an A-10 Warthog and an Apache, is because the Army and Air Force couldn't get along, so they created their own and like, screw you, we'll both blow up tanks with our own stuff. And so this idea of not wanting to share money and everything and just boxing it up, my counterpoint to that would be to what Gary said when he said yes, is that, historically speaking, humanity has this really great way of figuring stuff out once we know we need to. Like once we realize, okay, this is important, or when it's, suddenly, unfortunately, that catalyst oftentimes is war, where suddenly we're like, we need to build rockets. And then after the war, we're like, hey, we can fly these to the moon. This is fun. But once we realize that
but even that, even getting to the moon, sorry to cut you off, was we got to beat the Russians there.
Right. No, you're right. And once we have this kind of competition, or we know that it's possible, and I think that's what I was getting at. You're right. We do turn it into a conflict. We are funny like that. But once we know something is possible, and maybe that's the idealist in me, when people box me in a corner and they're like, well, what do you think it is? I don't know, but I'll tell you what I hope it is. I hope it is freaking aliens. I hope it's aliens from far away, because I believe that if the collective world knew that and believed that, then they would go, if they can do it, so can we. And I want to fly the cosmos. Like I'm selfish in that.
Yeah. And what separates us here on Earth? What are our, because that opens up this idea of a boundaryless world, right? It really makes people think on such an existential basis. They have to step back and go, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
But my fear is going to be like, well, I ain't erasing the lines of America. Like we.
Did we lose Lou, or is
frozen?
Everybody stopped and wondered if we were. I thought I had a stroke. I didn't know what happened.
The end is near.
All right, so the government took Lou out.
We're gonna put you on the big. We're gonna put you on the big screen there, Tim.
Lou's frozen. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get over the fact. It was funny because we all stopped.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out if I was frozen or and then we all were just like. No, but it's fascinating, right? This idea that if we are actually being visited by other species, what's the there's a star system only 9 light years away that we're looking at that's incredibly promising to host life. TRAPPIST-D, I think is what it's called, and so it's like. You look at how, we're billions of years into the evolution of the universe. And if we've got potentially life hosting planets 9 light years away, that's not far.
Well, you're thinking not far but you're not thinking of it in a relativistic situation. I mean, depending on how fast you travel here, that could be, 100,000 years in travel. I mean, that's really far away still.
Not for a von Neumann probe.
Well, yeah, and we can get up to like 10-20% of the speed of light with our current technology. And
now see, that's what I'm kind of hoping a lot of these objects are, because I think there is multiple UAP phenomenon going on. So there's natural phenomena going on that's being dictated as UAPs. There's unnatural phenomenon that we just don't know what the hell it is. And then we also have a nuts and bolts phenomenon, which I'm honestly hoping is just probes. Things that are unmanned, just like we did on Mars.
Right.
I mean, they could have literally shot something here 30,000 years ago that was, or say 400,000 years ago when the Earth was, still molten magma, or actually it'd be way farther back than that. But, before Homo sapiens were created, and it could just be sitting here, just chilling, monitoring this entire planet, doing remote, experiments on the life on this planet. They don't have to be here to interact with us.
Right.
And what's interesting about that, in what Gary said, because me and Gary have maybe spoken about this, and it's fun thought experiments, because when you talk about that idea that probes coming, especially probes arriving at a planet long before its evolutionary history or just coming from anywhere else, is you look at our own technology, because that's the only thing we have to compare with. And so when we're programming, even our own AI, it's just machine learning where we're programming it in stuff that we know. But when you encounter something alien, so in this instance, we would be alien, there's this fascinating idea that we're not in the program. So this idea that UAP is flying around, but doesn't register us per se, because it's
Right.
like, I don't know what the hell that is.
Right. Just doesn't care. Right.
Yeah.
That's not in the program. Certain things that would be in the program that are universal is like nuclear energy. I mean, that is something that is found in the universe. There's certainly a lot of accounts that suggest that UAP is attracted to nuclear energy. Is that just because it's like, oh, I know that, like I recognize that,
Right.
But Gary's trucking along in the Pacific, and it's like, I don't know what the hell that is. I'm just trying to have a good time, float around here. And now next thing I know, there's this weird, metal bird. They may be debating inside their AI head. That was a seagull.
Great point. Thank you so much, Susie, for the $4.99 donation. You guys are killing me. We appreciate your help. NWUAP with a $5 dono. I agree with Tim. I hope these are space aliens from far away. The public can digest that. Ultra-terrestrials is a terrifying thought. And this is something that we talked about. Lou talks about this all the time. It's like this idea that you can go tell your friends, like, I'm pretty sure we're being visited by 13 different species, this one and that one, the other one. They're like, okay, that's interesting. And then you talk about something like ultra terrestrials, and they're like, bro, you lost it. Like,
and ironically, mathematically, another dimension or a parallel world is more mathematically probable than somebody coming here from another planet, even 9 light years away.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that physicists and people have talked to me about when I talk about this topic with them, just in interviews, like, what do you think about it? What is it? And they're always like, they give me all the reasons why this idea of an alien species coming from afar is just ridiculous. And they're always like, if we're talking about some type of transdimensional type thing, something like that's more plausible. And, I think outwardly you look at that and go, really? But Gary's absolutely right. This idea, it would at least theoretically compensate for a lot of the shortcomings of being able to travel great distances.
Right. I have a feeling actually, I'm looking at Rather's face, and I'm thinking he disagrees. What are your thoughts, Rather?
Well, no, I agree with all that. I was kind of thinking, as far as figuring this all out, do you think that it's really even necessary to find and collect these and actually figure out what they are? Or, Tim, like you in your recent article, you were talking about William Colesborough, probably saying that name wrong, but they're just looking at things that might be appearing in the sky, kind of just hypotheticals almost, and coming up with real research and real advances just by that.
No,
so yeah,
absolutely.
I think that maybe we can just look at what's happening and figure it out.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Gary.
I wish we could just look at it and find it out, and that's actually what we're literally trying to do. But when we go back to trying to figure out exactly what like the solid objects we are seeing are, that's something we can solve because they appear enough and in enough places where we can film them, we can study them, we can stuff like that. It's all the rest of the weird shit that is almost impossible to test, and we can't. There's no repeatable test for an orb. there's no repeatable test unless you can trap an orb, which if it's actually plasma, yeah, we could trap it, but we don't even know if it's really plasma, and, honestly, even time travelers are more plausible than aliens. I hate to say it.
I don't know, but do you think? I don't know,
No.
because what about? I mean,
I-
you think about warp drive. You think about the potential for warp drive technology. You think about the potential for bending space time, right? I mean, these are genuine possibilities based on theoretical physics, just like a potential. I mean, we haven't proven interdimensionality.
Well, just like time travel.
It's theoretical, just like bending space time.
But the math is much easier to prove in the other three situations than it is.
Yeah.
Well, I say that the interdimensional is almost going to be impossible to prove, right? Like it's almost kind of like the whole religious.
I think they've already proven 4 dimensions.
Touche.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's
and
fair.
I know for a fact there's at least 3.
Right.
Oh yeah,
And
that's right. Time too. So yeah, 4 dimensions.
Definitely 4.
Yeah, there's 4. There's definitely 4, but
yeah,
there is an interesting aspect there in terms of our own psychology. And I've often talked about this because my background, ironically enough, is in cognitive psychology. And there's interesting aspects that relate to this phenomenon. In fact, it was what really kind of fascinated me to it in the first place is how do we interpret or perceive something that is truly anomalous? And it's not as cut and dry as people think. Our perception of reality in general, what we see right now is not this really finite picture that we consider. In fact, there's a host of new research related to psychedelics and everything that's actually giving us an understanding of the neuroscience behind how we form perception. And we realize there's a lot going on around us we don't perceive.
Right.
And so there's a lot of very interesting scientific questions and problems around it. And I think going back to what you said earlier, in terms of, by just examining this, can we have scientific breakthroughs? When I was saying yes, I was saying that we could absolutely, in my opinion, have scientific breakthroughs. Does that directly relate to UAP or not? I don't know. But just trying to answer the question. So if you believe that something is moving at this speed, in the act and process of trying to figure that out, I think is where you absolutely have breakthroughs. That's why I try to bring up my interview with Dr. Cuthbert as much as I can, because it points to this example where, like I said, in that instance, he didn't know he was doing a DIRD for a UFO program. Had no idea. He was doing 2 of them. But he was examining something that was out of the box. And he emphatically said, look, it doesn't really matter what the reason was. The outcome led to me examining areas in nuclear propulsion I normally wouldn't have before, and directly related to some of my students getting PhDs who wouldn't have, who currently work. One of them, I think, works at Los Alamos. I mean, they've gone on. So this idea that just examining it is not going to give something back, I think that should be the answer to the people who scoff at it so easily, is to say, but look, just by examining this, well, what's the difference from the scientists who examine Star Trek and it's like, I'm going to do that. It's the same kind of thing, except in this instance, we may have something real and tangible that is here that can equally provide us insight.
That's such an amazing point. I mean, Rather and I talk about this all the time, this idea that, when you're exploring things that people call pseudoscience, or you're looking into things that theoretically just haven't been proven out yet, but you think it's possible, that's where interesting stuff happens. Because even if you don't design what you were intending to, or have the scientific breakthrough you were intending to, it led somewhere else that might be equally as interesting. That's such a great point, Tim. Lou, you're back.
I'm first world problems, am I right? The internet completely crashed. Thank God you guys also had host capabilities, because if not, we would have lost the whole show.
Gary and Tim just ran it. We just hung out.
Oh, excellent. Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to the UCR team. I'm glad you're a part of it. Thank you so much, Schoolcraft, for the $1.49 super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So please don't let me interrupt the flow. What was happening?
No, we're just kind of digging into the value of looking into, even as UAP and UFO can be often described as a fringe topic, just looking into it from a scientific perspective, from a technological perspective, has incredible value because we don't know where it could lead. And so I think this idea, and Tim, Tim alluded to this, is we, just looking into it can have some very profound possibilities. So yeah,
it kind of goes back to the fact that Tim said earlier that when people think or know something's possible, well, it makes it opens up worlds to them to look into things that they normally wouldn't have. Honestly, prior to the Tic Tac event, I was interested in physics and technology and mechanical engineering, but I wasn't interested in theoretical science. I wasn't interested in quantum mechanics. I was interested in temporal mechanics and things to do with time dialysis and things like that. I was not even interested in any of this. So I literally changed my whole focus of study after this thing. I wouldn't be the president of UAPx today if this hadn't happened. It would be some other company, or I'd just still be working blue collar. Who knows? But when you see and know something that's real, you start looking at things you never would have before, and then that could come out with some very interesting results.
Well, we have sorry guys, I keep popping in and out. I'm at the mercy of technology, but the Veil with a $19.52 donation. Is there significance to this? Did I miss this? How about adding pseudo layers onto the physical examination, i.e., adding remote viewing to an event that has been that's being captured?
Well, I personally don't believe in remote viewing yet. I've never been personally exposed to it and its capabilities. I mean, I've heard of them and I've seen and read the results of them, but just like anything in any of these fields, until I personally either do it or have any actual experience with it, it's a bit unbelievable to me.
Have you tried doing it, Gary?
No, I have read into it though, and I've talked to some of the more prominent people in the field, and and I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying that I have no evidence personally other than what's been written by other people. And I mean, some of them is very, very persuading, which is why I'm even interested in the topic at all. But until somebody can personally provide me with it, then I can't really get on board with it yet.
Yeah. Is UAPx open to looking into consciousness and other kinds of interactions with these things? Or are you more into the nuts and bolts only?
I think all of us are interested in consciousness to a certain degree, but the actual studies that we do as a company are all nuts and bolts. So we're looking for physical evidence, UAPs, and we're trying to dissect anything that we find. Consciousness is more of a side hustle, a hobby.
Very subjective.
It's intangible. It's hard to prove. Every scientist and everybody that's dealt with math worth their weight in salt has always got to the point, well, where did that come from? Which means you always hit a wall where the tangible and intangible meet, and that's where consciousness slams together.
It's kind of like it's a singularity. Like once you get to it, you can't go back any further. It's that first principle. It's very difficult to get back. I love the internet. Look at this. UFO Video Addict says, "You quackademics don't have to look out into space for alien life. Several highly advanced species live right in our oceans. You douchebags." Thank you so much, UFO Video Addicts.
Well, shit.
Problem solved. I
guess we're done now.
I guess well, thank you so much for tuning in to the last episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review.
No, keep
really
it going as the identified.
There you go. Okay, and we will now. Well, we officially end season 1 of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, and we begin a brand new season with the Identified Celebrity. So yeah, welcome, guys. But I mean, he kind of does make a fun point, even though he called us douchebags.
I probably wouldn't make fun of him, but he does make a point. There is empirical evidence that there's shit coming out of the ocean, and I'll give him that. So, all laughing aside, there could be something to that, but I'm pretty sure I'm not a douchebag though.
I think the biggest problem is, and Gary's really hitting the nail on the head here, and I've seen the comment come up, is that this needs to be a scientific endeavor, and focused on science. And people have to understand that science does not move necessarily at the same speed that people hope and wish. It builds upon itself. So somebody does a study, and that study builds upon the next study, that type of stuff. But the study itself is valid. It's empirical. You can replicate the results, this type of stuff. And so I think it's very important at this point that you do focus on something like aerial anomalies and build from that in using this scientific foundation, because if it's not done in that manner, the results, it's going to be kind of like stuck in the mud. You're going to keep spinning. And so the idea of linking UAP to maybe more conscious type studies and things like that, like that's really, we're leaping. That's a huge leap where I don't think that scientific foundation has really been established yet. It's fun to think about. It's fun to talk about it. And I think there's nothing wrong. Creativity and thinking about this stuff is great. And I know people who have had or claim to have had experiences and stuff like this, they have more insight in that. I'm always like, that's great. I wish I did. I've not experienced anything, nothing. I wish that, nobody wants to abduct me, unfortunately.
I got what I said earlier. You want to experience something? I got somewhere to bring you.
Okay, perfect.
Please do tell. Hold on a second, Michael. Where is that place?
Wait a minute. At high noon on Thursday. I won't tell you shit because I'm under NDA.
Oh man, what a tease.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Michael?
Well, I was just gonna say real quick, I'm not advocating for pseudoscience, but I think oftentimes people can explore different ideas outside of the scientific or the academic mainstream, I should say, which can lead to interesting science if you use the scientific method properly. So yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think that's kind of why I think I love the show, The Curse of Oak Island, because it is the scientific method. It's been 9 seasons of the scientific method where they will not give you an answer because they haven't found it yet, because they're doing the carbon dating, they're doing the digging, they're doing as much research about the things they do find, but even they could have, and I figured for a History Channel show 4 seasons ago, they would have been like, it's Templar gold. We're looking for we're looking for the Holy Grail. It's definitely here. And we never get that with the show. And I think it drives people crazy because they're forced to go step by step through this scientific method. And the show only has the window of summer to film, because then everything freezes over. But I think the scientific method is fun, but you're right. It's slow, and we've got to be patient. And look, Avi Loeb just started. This guy's going to need, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, he's going to need hundreds of millions of dollars. He's going to need stations all over the world. It's not a cheap endeavor. So I 100% agree with you. I think science is going to be the thing that cracks it, hopefully. But we have to be patient. What were you saying, Gary?
Yeah. Avi's got us. I'm an affiliate on that program.
Right.
Along with a lot of really prominent names. I think Science Bob's even an affiliate on that.
There you go.
There's a lot of people in this field that are legitimate people that he reached out to everybody in the community. Now, I know he's not going to be really utilizing our information for, other than trying to figure out what kind of systems they should be using. But, it's awesome that he actually reached out to everybody and, made an affiliate program to influence this science. So it's really an amazing concept, and I really wish him all the luck in the world. And I can't wait to, hopefully help them out as much, any way we can.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for the teaming up, and I'm just excited to see where it's going to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years even. So we have 3 minutes left with 2 super chat questions. Let's get to this one first. Walker Dale, unless I missed this, we didn't answer this one, right, guys?
We didn't.
Go for it.
Okay. So great conversation, guys. Has Tim heard rumors about any possible NATO future involvement in the UAP issue?
No, I haven't, but it's funny you mentioned that, because I live just, a hop, skip, and a jump from NATO's air headquarters here near Ramstein. And so I bug them constantly. So no rumors as of yet, but I'll keep bugging them. Other than I know that they do get stuff. I mean, they monitor the skies over Europe, and they do get anomalies. They do get things. Now, whether they're doing anything with that or not, I haven't heard anything about.
Got it. And then last question, $10 super chat from John Music. Thank you guys so much for the super chats, by the way. They do help provide the show here for free 4 days a week going forward. So thank you so much. Any news on Mr. Elizondo's recent comments about how there might be more news drops soon about pre-1947 UFO or craft retrieval incidents in the U.S. or Italy, maybe the 1933 Italian alien craft?
I do. I actually do. Interestingly enough, yeah, I got no problem sharing with this one. Yeah, I do know that Elizondo, the people who were putting forth the stuff in San Marino, so with the Italian, some of them actually part of the Italian government, did provide documents to him, and I've seen some of those documents and everything that relate to, and I think it's not an unknown case to my knowledge, is this 1933 possible UFO crash with the Mussolini fascist government. So I know that information was kind of shared recently in the San Marino, not to the San Marino officials, but that came up while all of that was going on. And so you do have these interesting records that are official that are discussing this type of thing, where you do have Mussolini ordering this stuff to be captured and held in kind of this secret capacity. Now,
wow.
What happened after that? It's like everything else. It's where the trail goes cold. And so,
well, that coincides with the fact I know for a fact he just got back from Italy.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Yeah. So, I'll let him. It's not a debrief story that we're working on right now. So maybe he's planning on revealing that. But so I've just broken the news right here on the now identified celebrity review. And so
I got to change all my branding.
But who knows? So where it went from there, I don't know. I will say that I was when I first got here to Germany, I was driving along and looked over and saw a giant metal flying saucer over this building, and I almost crashed and was like, what the hell is this? And it was a giant flying saucer somebody had set up like over their mechanic shop here in Germany.
Oh man.
And I was like, hey, I was like, what is this the secret Nazi UFO? Yeah. I think I shared a picture on Twitter. I'll share it again. But yeah,
is that the
hiding in plain sight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the Antarctic.
Wow.
Right.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we've hit the 2 hour mark. I really appreciate everybody being here. Tim, I'm so happy we finally hooked up. I'm so happy that this is a connection we finally made. And man, I'm so grateful for your writing, for the things that you guys are doing at the debrief, for all the work, all the grunt work, all the grease work that you guys are doing, the elbow work that you're doing that I don't think is appreciated enough. It's always just I don't know. Sometimes it's met with some really nasty stuff. I'm like, why? These people are doing great work. Like, I love it. But I hope we see more from you. Obviously, I think we will. I can't wait to see what the debrief has. It's the first thing I have in my news section on my internet favorites here. So again, just appreciate everything you're doing. If you can, I'd love to give you the floor to sort of give the people out there some hope, some to make them feel good for the weekend before we head out of here.
My existential crisis.
Yeah,
my existential crisis wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Pressure's on.
Threatening them with a simulation theory. This is great. No, I mean, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I hope to have me on again. It was great getting to chat with everybody, and it was great. Me and Gary got to catch up a little bit, and I definitely appreciate all the kind words about the debrief. I certainly can't take credit for that, because we have some really super people. Yeah, like Chris, Plain, MJ, Micah, all those guys do a great job, and I'm
and Chrissy Newton. Don't forget the ladies and Kristen and Christina. Yep.
Yes.
We want to make sure we shout out the ladies.
Right. I got to run down. Hold on. Let me get to the list. So no, I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, though, we really depend on everybody like this show, like the work Gary's doing and everything. All we are is trying to bring that information out to the public. So I really encourage everybody to keep doing what they're doing, because we have nothing if it's not the people out here who are doing the real work. So thanks for all those kind words, but it's all we do is share information. It's guys like Gary, it's guys like UAPx, but we'll continue to push forward to try to bring that stuff out. And I'll continue to try to pester the government as much as humanly possible to try to see what we can do. See if we can't get that damn triangle photo. And I promise to start on part 4.
Well, maybe for the 1 year anniversary of the debrief, maybe we'll get that. Fingers crossed.
Speaking of the anniversary of the debrief, I got notified today that we will be having the entire founders circle of the debrief on the Singularity Lab on the 2nd of December.
What?
Yeah, we're gonna have MJ. We're gonna have the whole founders circle, which is exciting. Hank, yeah, we're excited.
Hey,
Yeah,
I love it. Mike, why didn't you end with that, McMillan?
Because it's news to me.
All right, Tim, before you get out of here, my friend, before you get out of here, please tell everyone where they can find your work. If they have any questions, how they can reach out to you.
Sure. Yeah. You can always check us out at thedebrief.org. I'm on Twitter at LT Tim McMillan. My DMs are open. Feel free to slide in my DMs. But I try to answer everybody. It tends to be busy, and I'm always, 6 to 9 hours away from all my buddies in the U.S. So
right.
People, if you're never blown off. I have this horrible habit of waking up at 2 a.m. checking emails and stuff, and then people are like, that Tim's an asshole. He never answers me. I forget because there's no notification.
The man lives in Germany, people.
But I do enjoy it, man. I really do, and I can't say enough how much I appreciate the kind of the support we get, shows like this, and everybody out there, because it makes it fun and it makes us keep wanting to do it.
Right on, man. Well, we look forward to having you back on again, and again, appreciate everything you do and your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Anytime, guys. Anytime.
Awesome. That was Tim McMillan, everybody. Thank you, sir. And of course, this beautiful man with the beautiful voice.
Hey, how's it going?
There it is. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, man, and being a good sport and sharing your interview with Tim McMillan. And please.
Oh, you mean the interview with Tim McMillan that I shared?
Yeah.
What is this? The Tim McMillan show?
It is the Tim McMillan show, according to Robert.
I'll tell you what. When you get somebody like that, that's so well read, so well spoken, and basically just lives his entire life digging this stuff up for you guys. It's honestly sometimes just better to just shut up and listen.
It's fun too. It's fun. It makes my job definitely 10 times easier. But Gary,
wait,
what were you say? Rather,
glad you're here to share your opinions. There was some great
For
stuff.
sure.
Definitely.
We appreciate it.
Definitely.
But thanks for having me on again. And the event you guys put on was awesome. And I look forward to it next year. And definitely, hopefully, be a big part of it next year to help you guys out. And
we'd love to have you there.
And remember to everybody that doesn't think that they can really make a contributing factor in this. I am a self-educated person that was just a cable guy, and now I head a company that's literally doing real research on this. So if you think you can't do it, you're just lying to yourself. So get out there, learn something, open a book, do something other than click on things, and you'll probably succeed far more than you even understand. And Tim, keep in touch. I love you guys. Take it easy.
Now that's a send-off. That's a weekend send-off right there.
Boom! End the show. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
Woo. Wow, man.
Good show.
This show?
Yeah, it's fun.
Good show, man. Tim and Gary. God, such excellent guests.
That was cool. That was really, really cool. And it was just a wonderful way to end the week.
I agree.
Having Michael back, Rather's in the saddle. This was cool.
Is he in the saddle? We can't see his lower half, and people want to know if he's in a saddle or if he's squidding. If there's a saltwater tank
there
below.
have been some reporters coming to my house trying to take pictures of me, trying to report back to TMZ and.
I love how he cuts off his own joke now. It's great. We don't even have to do it anymore. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so damn much for tuning in to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the jams that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. I want to say thank you to all the fans out there that shared, liked, subscribed. Check out the Patreon. Check out the links below. I've got links for everybody that was on the show today in the description below. So if you want to follow Tim, Gary, Michael, me, all of the links are down right below the video. So go check them out. Check out the podcasts, which are available pretty shortly after the show airs. And yeah, that's it. Michael, you got anything before we get out of here?
I think
Rather never came back. He's done.
I think you nailed it. We do have a couple of good shows. So we're gonna be going down to 1 day a week Singularity Lab in a few weeks. But I do have quite a few guests booked up for Tuesdays for the next few weeks.
So, okay.
So we've got.
We still got a show 5 days a week for at least 2 weeks.
We're doing our best here, folks. We're
doing
trying
our
not
best.
to burn out. We're trying not to burn out for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we got some good ones coming up on the Singularity Lab as well. We've got next week. We've got Kevin Knuth coming on.
Oh wait,
Tuesday.
next week?
Next
week. I was gonna say I think we're taking the week off, but I can be there for you.
Oh, you are? You're taking the week off next week?
Well, because Rather's not going to be here Wednesday and Friday, or right?
Oh.
Rather. Yep, he's giving me a thumbs up backstage. So if you want to move them to the week after, we can do that.
Well, let me see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. No,
I'm
but
not doing shows next week.
I've got Jack Sarfardi on Thursday, and that dude's hard to get, so probably can't change that one.
So then maybe we'll just do Singularity Lab next week.
Maybe we'll do that.
Okay, great. But I'm off. I'm not doing any shows next week.
Okay, well then it'll be 2 easy shows, and we'll have a blast. We got great guests, and we'll leave people without serious withdrawals for an entire week.
There you go.
All right.
So there you go. You went from no shows next week to 2 shows next week. All right. I love that we figure out these production things here on the show live in front of everybody. I thought I told you that we're taking the week off next week, but I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't. That's the show, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. We truly love you all. Until next time, be safe out there. Peace. Just want to thank everybody in the Patreon. Thank you all so much for choosing the Unidentified Celebrity Review to donate your hard-earned dollars to. Thank you, Jack Ryan, Matthew Ryan, Jedi Camper, Aaron Desario, Gerald Greenwood, Michelle de Guzman, Matthew Lee, UFOpian. I love it. Thank you all so much. Genosis, David Perkins, Jimmy Singer. Thank all of you for making this week such a wonderful week. Until next week, ciao. I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
I believe you're enjoying all this. Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up.
Shh. Shh. Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.